Welcome back to another episode of Practice Underwater. I have with me here today my co-host, Dr. Matt Garino. How's it going today, Matt?
George, I got to say I'm fired up to be here. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the episodes. It's been a month or two since we recorded. I have some apologies to make to our audience.
Oh, yeah?
I've gotten some feedback from you, George, that I haven't been entertaining enough, that I'm boring our listeners. So to our listeners, I apologize for boring your ears off for the last couple months. But my commitment to you is to be exciting here on out.
Well, it's funny. So Richard and I had the same discussion when I first came on the air, and it's tough. You know, you're talking to thousands of people, and it's hard to kind of not. You know, for me, I was just trying to always be about providing value and great content, and forgetting the entertainment value part of it. And so, I recognized that in you early on, and I've been sort of trying to get you out of your shell earlier and faster than it took me about 2 years. So if I could cut that down by about 2 years, that'd be pretty good.
That's what I'm all about, fast tracking the results. And the second thing I need to apologize is the sound quality. We've gotten several emails about how the sound quality is not up to snuff. Again, I apologize, listeners. We're working on it. We got a great podcast leader now who's getting me all my mics set up, my knobs and everything. So I think we're good to rock.
Today's interview, I'm pretty excited. So every once in a while, we'll run into a guest that reminds us of a past version of ourselves. So for me, it was Rock, the guy who bought the practice, employing the seller. Him and I are actually working together on coaching now. In your case, it was really this interview. Talk about your connection with him.
Yeah, I see a lot of him in myself. He did a GPR. He offers a wide range of clinical offerings. He's doing a similar number of production, that 1.6 million area. He just struggles with a lot of things that I struggled early on. How do I market? How do I take a vacation? Like, how do I enjoy the success that I'm having? So I think you pointed to a lot of those areas in this interview coming up, and it just is a little flashback for me. Let's roll it.
All right, here we go. This is Practice Underwater with our fake guest, Tom. Real guest, fake name. I have with me today a longtime listener of the show. Is that correct? You're a longtime listener?
Absolutely.
And somebody that I've talked to over Facebook message for probably the last year at least that I remember. And so it's cool to finally have a practice owner who's followed our philosophy from pre-owner to owner. First thing that I'm going to ask him, I already warned him, is that he's going to pick his fake name because I hate calling people mystery doc or whatever. I feel like a financial advisor. Straight up, what would you like your name to be for the purpose of these next two episodes?
Tom.
All right, Tom. It's funny. All right. So Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your experience as a pre-owner and, where you're at now and just a little about your situation. Because I genuinely, I try to do these with as minimal knowledge as possible before we get started.
So I've been a huge fan of the show. It's definitely been extremely informative. The quality's been fantastic for getting the transition from associate to ownership. I wasn't one of the guys that went straight out from school. So I went and did a residency, and then I worked as an associate for a few years for a large DSO. But ownership's always been something I've really wanted, just for the control and life goals. So was looking for a while, and my market is quite saturated, so finding the right opportunity was a challenge. But as of January this past year, I met a guy who was retiring, and we felt like we were a good fit, and I've just been stepping into ownership since then and really living the dream. I absolutely love dentistry. It's something I really enjoy doing, and then it's a privilege that I get to do it as my job. And I'm just excited to continue to develop my skill sets, continue to develop the business, and see what opportunities we can work on together. I'm aware of some of the concerns I think I have with the practice as it is, but I'm always open to feedback and, another look at it or another way to try and develop things.
Cool. And two comments. So this practice is by no means underwater. I looked at it briefly like 30 minutes ago. And so I want to throw out that misnomer. So we call the show Practice Underwater. But if we had all bankrupt practices on this thing, we would have no episodes. So everybody's a good fit. And if you feel like you want to be on the show, then be on the show. A lot of times we have successful people who just want to be more successful, and that's kind of what we're going for. So the other thing that I want to commend you for is loving dentistry. Isn't that refreshing to hear? How often do we not hear that?
Yeah, that's a bit of a pet peeve for mine. There's so much doom and gloom out there, and people just pick up all this baggage of limiting beliefs, and they let that sit to them, particularly people in our generation with the debt loads. But I really love what I do, and it's awesome to get to do it. And if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, I guess, right? And it feels like that, and it's just been fun. It's a privilege.
So, are you an associate or owner of this practice?
I own the practice.
As of when?
January of this year, January 25th.
And then as an owner, so were you ever an associate in the practice pre-ownership?
Not in this one. The deal I was looking at before, I was asked to be a transitioning associate, and I got burned really badly on that. So this one, it was just pass the keys over and get after it, which I enjoyed.
So was that experience of being burned something that you went into the second time around as ownership only is the only thing that you're willing to enter again?
Originally, it was ownership was the plan. And then you hear of these like phase transitions. I'm not new to dentistry. I've been practicing as an associate for about 4 years, so I felt like I could do the clinical part. And so I definitely appreciated with the deal that worked out that we didn't have to worry about having like the two captains of the ship issue. And I just had the endorsement from the previous doc, and he gave me the keys, and I can pick up the phone whenever I need and ask him questions. But it's not like I'm having to walk on eggshells or, you know.
So you do not have the seller working in the practice clinically?
No, he's fully retired.
So then your practice does have an associate though, correct?
I have a specialist that comes in once or twice a month.
So this practice so I'm looking at your September, and you guys, or so to date in October, like halfway through October or 3 weeks in, whatever this weird month, but like September, you collected 130. And so that's solo?
Yeah, plus the specialist. We had a really good implant case in September that helped, like a upper-lower fixed hybrids. But,
okay.
But yeah, I'm the one doctor there full-time.
So on average, what are you guys collecting, and what collections every month?
About 130 collections. Productions, we have some adjustments, so production varies from there to like 190, but it's kind of hard to get a feel for it because it's still only been 8 months. I'm kind of seeing where I'm at.
Okay, but you think you're kind of hovering around. So I don't look at if like
my personal goal is to try and get 130 collections each month. That's kind of what I want. And
in this year, how many months have you guys gotten that?
I think it averages at least over that, yeah.
Okay, so you're averaging about, you're operating at like the 1.6-ish range.
We're on for 1.6 is sort of forecasted currently.
Okay, real quick. So this guy, Tom, listened to the show and he signed up with PBN, and he had some good things to say about it via chat. So I think Rohit would appreciate it if I gave you the opportunity to talk about your experience with Practice by Numbers. So shoot, and then we'll carry on from there.
So working as an associate, I didn't really get a lot of choices with these types of things, but there were management systems with the company, and so I was dealing with what I had, and they had metrics and stuff, and there was always like a veil of like what I could see or what I couldn't see, which became very frustrating. But Practice by Numbers has been amazing because like it really makes it easier for my front office to look at the lists and work on reactivation or retention or any of these particular problems, because like there's this disconnect with like you're looking on the numbers and the numbers are not what you think they are, and then you go back to your front team and you're like, okay, what's up? You're telling me that we have this under control, but the numbers aren't there on the system. Like, oh, it can't be right. The numbers can't be right. It's not pulling it right. But then they start diving into it. It's like, oh, they actually missed the codes or they missed the appointments. And so no, like the system is correct. And like, even if it wasn't correct, like you need to have some sort of way to monitor your system. So it's just really eye-opening, because now I can go to my team, I can say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and they can have to have some sort of accountability without me having to be the one that's actually auditing all the Dentrix reports every single day.
Bingo on the auditing. It's so nice to know your hygienist reappointment rates without having to click on appointments.
Who wants to do that? Run all those Dentrix reports. It's confusing even for someone that's been using it for years.
So how long have you been using PBN for?
Probably like 4 weeks, but more so past couple weeks.
So you said it's been eye-opening.
Yeah.
What have been so in the last 4 weeks, what have you noticed as just like, we have never talked about Practice by Numbers about your practice yet. So what are the things that you gleaned on your own?
So, the leaky bucket analogy that you guys refer to along the way a few times, before I had PBN, I was like just going to my office manager and asking, hey, how many requests for records do we have, or what's your feeling on this? And like, oh, it seems like it's going okay. But then you look at the numbers, and I have 250 out and only 120 coming in this year. So what's going on there? And then they dive into it, and it's like, hey, unfortunately, some of the patients are aging out or dying, which is just the reality of my patient base.
Yeah, older population, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, your perio percentage is insane, so I sort of assumed that it was an older
Yeah,
population.
the guy who retired was 70. So I think I've heard that sometimes the patients follow the age of the doctor. So
Okay.
it's very much the older patient base.
But is your area old too?
It's pretty suburban, but I don't think he was marketing for younger patients at all, really.
Okay.
So I'm aware that's a risk to me.
Well, let me take a look here. So I'm just going to take a quick peek at your, so your new patients. Let's see how old they are. So your new patients are kind of hovering.
It's tough. It's not great. I get so jealous when you hear about some of these practices getting 60 plus new patients a month.
Do you do marketing?
I was focused mostly on getting to know the patients in my practice and getting the transition to go, but I feel like we've kind of passed that stage in the transition so far, and marketing is probably the number one thing that's on my mind right now. I went ahead and did Swell like you guys suggested, and Swell has been amazing as well. And then worked on getting my Google reviews consciously great, and they're kind of where they are, and working on internal referrings, but it hasn't necessarily helped to new patients getting where we need to be yet. But I want to start looking at AdWords or other areas that I haven't dived into yet, but I'm doing the research now.
Okay. So real quick, your new patients. So your most common age group for new patients is between 20 and 30. Then your next
a lot
most
of them
common,
are my friends.
probably. And then your next is 30 to 40, and then 40 to 50. So you're very much getting different patients than the ones you have, is what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what it feels like?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it's either my friends that I have a relationship with, or some patients that followed me, or friends and family members of my team members, which is obviously a good starting point, but it's not going to sustain the practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you notice, I noticed that when I walked into my practice, the first 6 months was a lot of diagnosis and a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you've noticed.
Oh, yeah.
So you're in month 10. So you're kind of getting the and with you diagnose quite a bit. I think that's the thing I'm most like. I have yet to meet a solo practitioner who diagnosed over $400,000 in a month until this moment. So I'm very proud of you for that. That is of the things you do well, your ability to diagnose is one of them.
Well, yeah, I think there's some of the Justin Short stuff that I picked up along the way there, like the whole line he says about, I'd rather tell you what I see, and then you have aware of it, and then me and you sit down, we can figure out a plan, and the plan takes weeks, months, years, it's all good. But rather that than having the emergency pop up on the weekend, that's been helpful for that. And then just treatment planning, like quadrants or systematically to get patients where I think they'll be the healthiest in the long term.
Yeah, because I think the thing that I'm looking at, and you kind of noticed it. So are you really so the biggest observation you had was that, your retention is you're losing more patients than you're getting.
So I'm still figuring that one out, because I think a lot of them are unfortunately just inactivating, like having the front office go through the work of cleaning it up because it wasn't getting monitored very well before I took over. So I'm not sure how much of that is exactly what I've done versus people who were sort of lost the practice, but the practice didn't know it before I took over. So it's a bit of both, and I'm trying to have them clean that up.
Sure. So you have 900 patients in your practice. And so if we just kind of put you at average, on average, you're going to lose 20% of them a year. That's actually not even average. That's good. So if you're doing good, you're going to lose 20% of those patients every year. So at best, you're even. You're getting as many as you're losing. But 900 is a very small patient base to sustain $1.6 million in collections.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm worried about, obviously.
So what was the practice doing before you bought it?
1.1, one flat.
Yeah. So you're enjoying the new ownership high.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the new ownership high, and then I got brought back down to reality.
So it's
And
coming.
yeah, you're heading towards reality. So it's great because like that's what happens a lot of times. I'll hire like clients hire us around the time of early acquisition, and we look really good at first because the practice grows a lot, and it's like, oh, the coach must have done something, but it's I kind of always tell them right away. I'm like, dude, this isn't sustainable. We got to make it sustainable. And so that's very much the conversation that you know I think would be appropriate in this situation. So, like, let's table that. We'll talk about that later. Other than the patient flow issue, is there anything else that you gleaned from your practice by numbers?
I mean, there's a lot of pieces there, but I'm not remembering them off the top of my head.
Sure.
I think it's
So the one that really stuck out to you was patient flow.
well. That's the issue. I know. I knew that before PBN. Like that was just. I know that's what I'm dealing with coming into this situation, trying to maintain things. So I guess we have a decent amount of field appointments, and working on hygiene is something I work on. But the biggest thing for me is just the ability to audit the front office systems on most of the disciplines, where there's retention, reactivation, hygiene appointments. Like that's been the most helpful thing so far.
Okay. And so how are you feeling in general in ownership?
I mean, I love it. It's living the dream. I get to do dentistry. I get to make my own decisions. I bought all the stuff I want to use. It's absolutely a blast. I feel very confident still. I'm not super worried because I know I can do it one way or the other. But at the same time, I'm trying to be like eyes open to the issues that I know are coming and just trying to get ahead of them. So that's where the marketing is kind of red alert status.
Big time. So what is your overhead right now? So you're collecting on average 130. What is your overhead?
Without my salary?
Yeah. Like just the typical way everyone talks about it.
80, 90 maybe. We're not lean. I was pretty intentional about having fun being able to buy the instruments and the supplies I wanted, at least in the first few months, which definitely raised the cost of things. But yeah, probably about 80, 90 a month. So
okay.
My accountant's been a little slow on his P&Ls, which I'm asking him to get to me quicker. But
how long are they taking for you?
My accountant?
Yeah.
It was like once a quarter was the idea, and then like months ago I asked him for once a month, and that hasn't really happened. So I'm not thrilled. But
yeah, I think that's nuts. It feels like the next week after the month ends, I should be getting a report. And for me, I get promised by the end of next month, and that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I think from when I was in the DSO setting, I feel like the middle to the second half of a month after the following month is doable by the time we pay everyone. But maybe if people have better accountants or something, I don't know, something I'm looking at still figuring out. But yeah, anyway. I don't have as much of a grasp of the overhead as I need to.
So that's the thing that I would be, and like this is another ask me how I know, right? Like you grow your overhead with your business, and then you're in a business cycle right now on an upward trajectory that is not positioned to be sustainable. And so on the way down, like, if that overhead is fixed at a higher number, it's not going to be nice. Let's just say you settle on my
overhead is going to be like 75K, 80K, probably.
Okay.
No matter what.
So, and when you bought it, what was it? What was the seller's overhead?
I think it was, then he
60 something.
Yeah, considering the loan payment, probably about there.
So I'd say you're probably going to settle in the 1.3, 1.2 area, like without doing anything.
Well, I'm not going to not do anything.
I know, but I'm saying like on the track that we're going right now.
Okay.
Like let's just say no higher new patient flow, like it will regress down to like 100 to 110 a month. Is kind of what it's looking like. So that's the situation that we're faced with, and it's just a matter of how are we going to combat that? So the other thing that I noticed was you don't have a very good idea of your adjusted production.
Oh, I know the adjustments are high.
Yeah. So that lack of knowledge about your adjusted production is a little So like your AR is really high. Your like you have like your AR days. You're
The
at
AR
50.
is high waiting on a workman's comp case, which
Okay, so that's a workers' comp case.
mhm.
Okay, so you don't think you have a collections problem?
Well, I think every owner thinks they have a collections problem. Like it's always a battle. It said adjusted collections was like 99% over 10 months.
Okay,
If you look at the window from when I started to when we are today on the PBN software, then apparently it says on there it's like 98, 99% that they eventually get it done.
okay. So for you, you really feel like your biggest areas of growth are just patient flow, which I would agree with, and then your hygiene reappointment rates
Are
are
low.
okay.
The practice before wasn't. They didn't really put any emphasis in hygiene, hence why it's a long-standing practice that only has 4 days a week of hygiene.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's kind of a bit of a culture shift. I've definitely got my hygienists like pretty amped up about it because they're happy that I'm reinforcing their suggestions. But there's a lot of patients that are used to just calling in for last-minute appointments whenever willy-nilly, and I think a lot of the time they're getting let out the door without appointments because there's some sort of trust or like previous relationship according to the front office. Like, oh, that's what this person always does. And so I've been like letting that. Well, before PBN, I wasn't as aware of that, and now I'm a bit more aware of it. But I'm trying to like find how firm to be about pushing on that.
Okay. Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most.
One of my pet peeves that I want to share is that when you talk to some of the providers that are really successful out there, that have been in practice for 20, 30 years, and they roll your eyes when you say you're going to manage by numbers and this and that, they have successful practices, they have built them, and they have something right they have done. And when they tell you the only thing you need to look at is your bank account, it's absolutely incorrect. Okay? It pisses me off every time I look at that and I see that comment on the Facebook group, because success is not happenstance. It just doesn't happen.
It's kind of baffling. It's an everyday kind of thing where you're striving to improve, you're striving to tighten your systems, you're striving to know your practice better, and just to get in that kind of complacent mode is easy. I can see how it happens, because you're so in the wheel and you get overwhelmed with things that this isn't something you want to think about a lot of times. But it really is so important that people focus on this kind of thing.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial. So talk about your, how is the leadership part of being the practice owner? How has that been going for you?
That's always tricky because you come in and you're trying to be friendly, but then you lose your ability to hold accountability. And finding that balancing point is definitely probably one of the hardest parts, or probably the hardest part of dentistry right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the dentistry is easy and I can do the procedures and I can talk to the patients, but helping to motivate the team organizationally or pushing on the front office to get calls done or collections done firmly but nicely is, I'm getting better, but it's definitely something we can all work on, I think.
Definitely. I think early ownership, that's the hardest thing, is balancing that relationship between wanting to be nice to the staff so that they like you and treating them really well. But at the same time, there's going to be stuff that you want to change and do that they're not going to be used to. And so that adds friction to that relationship. And there's going to be things that they do that you don't like. And that's really tough.
Yeah, the other one is like a bit of like how much pace to put on things, like how lenient to be on like letting people adjust to transitions versus like how quick to make progress through problems that you see in the practice. So that's just something I'm, obviously at this point I'm feeling much more, okay, it's time to start implementing more and more now that I've been there for, 9 months, but you're trying to read that as you go through too.
So let's talk about So I'm kind of trying to just kind of get your chief complaints out of you. So I hear sustainability of the practice as one. We have some leadership stuff that we could talk about, which will be good. Do you have anything else? Like, what other reasons made you want to schedule this interview?
Well, you guys, I just respect your opinion and analysis and I've been a fan for a long time, and I'm always open to whatever insight and coaching I can get from whatever sources I can find, because it always helps. But the patient volume is an issue, the sustainable issue. I guess I could definitely need to work on my systems a bit more. I might be a little bit of in the split situation as far as insurances, where like there has been a historically strong Delta Premier in the practice, and obviously, I have to deal with that. So it's, do I go down to Delta PPO? And then if I go down to Delta PPO all the way, can I, do I have to go into PPO, like pick up more PPOs, or can I try and be out of network more? And even some of the earlier episodes, you sort of said that there's sometimes you get stuck in between. You have to make your mind up one way or the other. The office is definitely not in a position to drop Delta at all right now. So I've just got to mulling some of the strategies insurance-wise over too.
So that's a vision question that I love.
Yeah.
So let's talk vision. I think that'll frame the rest of the conversations. So where do you see this practice 5 years from now, if you could have anything you want?
I want to get it to double hygiene ASAP. That's big, important.
Okay.
Sort of getting towards the sustainability aspect of things. I really enjoy working with my in-office perio once or twice a month, so that's great. I really enjoy doing comprehensive dentistry, so doing endo, do some crowns, do some implants, like rebuilding bites, and doing a bit of everything. Long term, it would be nice to have an associate, and just to provide having the flexibility that gives you. But I want to try and develop this into like the strongest office I can be, doing the best dentistry I can do with a full variety of procedures. Develop a reputation in the community, and the community I'm in it's definitely not poor community, but it's not like an elite community either. So I'm always wondering about whether I should like play with my fees and like have a good fee, but maybe be a little bit more affordable than specialists doing some other things. But for now, I've just been following the UCR that was in the practice that I, got when I got the practice. So some different ideas.
So I'm hearing a love for complex cases.
Yeah.
Which is like that's solo talk usually. Yeah. And then I'm hearing, and that's not always true, but individuals like that tend to do better in solo practices.
I'm not opposed to doing the solo thing. I do like the control.
What about the associate appeals to you?
Just that I can be away from the office a little bit more. I could maybe take 2 weeks of vacation at some point in my career versus never. Okay. But I guess that's a mindset thing too that I need to work through.
Yeah, I think. So how often would you take a 2-week vacation?
Probably not that often. I mean, I like what I do, but the girlfriend wants to do more extensive trips, and obviously I would too. I like to kiteboard, so it's fun to go to different parts of the world to try and do that.
Yeah, I don't think a world where you take vacations like once a year for a couple weeks is an immediate indication for an associate.
Yeah, I think maybe once I know the patients enough and they trust me, we can just set it up in advance.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of ways to do what you want to do and live the life you want to live without having an associate. How many ops do you have?
6. I could build it out to 7.
Okay.
It would be a little tight.
You're screaming productive solo. Minimal patient base, low new patient flow, high fixed costs at a small size, and clinicals. I mean, I would call you a clinical savant. You are the guy that anytime I coach one of these guys, it's like, you are so unlike me that it's like really impressive, and clinically you just, anything that walks into your office, you're pretty much going to be able to do something. That's what I'm hearing. Does that sound?
That is, I mean, that's definitely been pretty intentional. Just like in the region that I work in, like I don't really see how people can pay their bills and just do the composites and crowns and the basic dentistry. Because it's not uncommon in my region to get the 5 to 15 new patients a month. Like that's kind of typical. Like that's par, and people get less. So when you're sitting around as an associate, you're twiddling your thumbs, like, and you did the training, like I did a great residency at the VA, so I felt good about it. Then yeah, you go for it and you do it, and it's fun because I like doing it, but it also keeps you in business.
So you want to get to double hygiene as soon as possible, which I agree with. I think a solo checking 2 hygiene is like a really nice combo. Are you prepared on the assistant side though to handle that type of volume? Because you're already producing like a crazy amount of dentistry off one hygienist patients.
Yeah, staff's always a big issue. I actually feel like I really got a good group right now. I've had a few transitions during this period with assistants and front office, but I think the team I have right now has good potential. I don't want to get too big because so I have 2 assistants, 2 front office, 1 hygienist a day, but 2 different hygienists. And
would both of those hygienists be able to add? So are those your 2 full-time hygienists if you could afford them and have patients for them?
One of them, yes. The other one has another office that she works at.
Does she like yours better?
She's probably been with that other office for like her whole career, so I don't think I would.
So no, she likes the other one better.
Yeah, but she likes her office too. But I couldn't tell her to leave her other office to come join us.
So okay. And your overhead is comprised of what is your rent?
$6,000.
Okay. So your rent is $6,000. Your people expenses are?
It's like per month. Let's see.
Yeah.
Like 40. I think. Let's see. It's like the same as what I guess. Like 30%, 25%.
So 25% of
I think it's like 30%. I don't have the P&L in front of me right now, and it's been
that's fine. I mean, you seem like a numbers guy, so I'm just throwing questions at you.
Yeah, I should definitely.
No, you don't. You should not. If you know that, it's not normal.
I do have. Actually, no. Go ahead.
So my question for you is, and I think this is a good conversation for. Sorry, I just bumped my mic. A good conversation for those who are in transitions. So you said you had some overhaul with the staff, or some people leaving and coming.
I think so. As far as the numbers, I'm definitely in a watered down overhead by producing mindset in my career.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy that's saving cotton rolls. There was a couple of months where I spent $15,000 on supplies getting the office set up the way I wanted it to be, but I spent it with a smile on my face because then I'm working with stuff that feels good in my hands. So I obviously have to put that part of me away and settle down now that I have kind of what I got. And now I got myself on a budget there and trying to use labs that are not the cheapest, but not ridiculous either. So I'm aware of the overhead, but I'm more into the idea of watering it down because most of the things I spend money on, since I'm mostly solo, I get the benefit from the things I spend money on.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm with you. I want to talk about the staff turnover. This is an important topic for a couple reasons. Tell me about what happened with the team that you had in place.
I kept the key players. The OM still with me. She's definitely on board. She's having fun. She's excited by the energy that we're going after a bit more these days. But at the same time, she's sort of old school, and we got to get her up to date on some of the new stuff. But at the same time, she's made a lot of progress. So I'm feeling pretty blessed by that. I think that's been a good part of where my bigger case acceptances has come from or contributed towards. My main hygienist has been with the practice forever too. She's quite slow, which was frustrating at times, but she's definitely loyal and committed, and she supports me, which is all, that's a big deal, having support from the established team members.
And that's the 2-day a week one? You have two 2-day week ones?
3-day a week. So one's 3 days a week, and then one's 1 day a week.
The 3-day a week hygienist, the one that you were just talking about, does she want to add days?
Not sure, probably not. I think she's found a happy balance of work life. She doesn't work on the other days.
Yeah.
I think her husband's independently wealthy, so I don't think I can count on that.
Yeah. And so then who did you turn over to then? One front desk, it sounds like?
I had a front desk that the previous doc had suggested finding someone different, so I took his advice.
How long did that take?
That was right off the start. We just didn't hire her.
And then what about...
And I got a new front desk that's good. And then I have one assistant that quit right off the start, but because she didn't want to work at the pace that we were doing. And then another original assistant who's on maternity. And I have a new hire referred this RDA, who's extremely good clinically, but could work on his like organization and leadership a little bit. And then I just picked up another DA who's been with us for about 4 weeks.
Do you have three assistants?
Very promising. Well, I have 2 in the office right now.
Okay, so 2 total.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had at one point we had a sterilization tech thing going because the hygienist was not into turning our rooms over, turning our instruments over, and that was obviously pretty ridiculous considering we only have 1 day a week of hygiene and 1 doctor. But I think we've managed to get away from that now. So
good. So, how do you feel about the turnover?
I'm fine with it. I think it was improvements, but I don't think I lost anything that I needed.
Yeah.
I got the support from the core team, which is the most important thing in these types of transitions.
So I think it's important that people hear that. So the reason why I made you kind of go through that analogy was not so much for you, but for everybody else, because people walk into acquisitions thinking that everybody has to stay. And it's okay if they leave. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. It's really, it's tough if you don't feel like they're supporting your vision. Like it just ruins the whole pillar that we build our rapport with our patients, and that's the way we get it done. So I would have a hard time working with people I didn't feel that support from.
And did any patients leave because of that?
No, I don't think anyone left from staff turnover issues. I think it's just the normal, like some people were moved out of town, they're coming from a long way away for the previous doc, or
and that's typical stuff.
Yeah, that's typical stuff you can't do much about.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal that you had the turnover. Honestly, it was probably for the best. And so, anybody out there that's worried about that or feels inadequate because they had some turnover, don't. Like,
it's really nice when you feel like you have your team too. Like there's a point where like, okay, there were the previous docs team and now like I very much have my team, my new tires on my team, but then also like the original employees also feel like they're on my team, and that's fun.
Yeah, and the culture is probably a lot more energetic with the younger doc in there. I want to wrap up this first part, and I want to dive into the next part where we're going to talk about your action plans. So I just want to summarize things. I think we have the patient flow issue. I think we have the leadership component, which I actually think might fit into this part. And then I think it's just talking about really the sustainability of the practice, I think is really the biggest thing for me that I'm looking at. And I want to make sure that you have your productive solo practice that's very profitable, that can be sustained in a competitive area long term. The fact that your area is competitive, how much do you think about that throughout
that doesn't shake me at all. Like I'm very comfortable. I mean, as an associate, I knew I could do what I did, and I feel like if I can't find a way with like my passion for what I do, then no one else is going to find a way either. So obviously, dentistry is a very successful career, and we all find a way. So I'm not overly worried by it.
So then, the only thing I want to talk about before we wrap up this part is your front desk. So when you go up to them and you talk to them about the reappointment thing. So, like, what is your typical strategy for handling something with your team that you want done differently?
I think, you just ask, but then a lot of the time they give you the smile and the nod, and then you don't really know if it's happening. And then, so finding easy ways to audit in a way that's explainable to the team members being a bit of a game changer this past couple of weeks. So that's why I'm definitely amped up on the PPN thing so far. Like, my OM was resistant to the software at first, but now she's like all jazzed up. She's like, oh, these lists make it so easy for me. And so I don't think I have tremendous amount of pushback from the old, on these changes so far, because they understand like we have to update and develop. But it's sometimes getting the concept explained and the training implemented isn't as easy. And then the whole thing of reinforcing, like you have to keep reinforcing all the time, and that gets tiring. And so sometimes you get lazy and you don't reinforce it all the time. Like I had some issues with the organization of the office, and that took a long time to get dialed in the way I needed to be.
Mm-hmm. I love that smiling and nodding. I just imagine like my front desk sitting there smiling and nodding at me, not planning on doing anything I'm saying. That's fun.
Well, they think, then how do you check?
Yeah, in my experience, what has not worked well for me has been the experience of going to tell somebody what to do and the smiling and nodding. Like, I think the way you described it was perfect. In their head, they're thinking, if they're thinking, I'm not going to do it, until you address whatever it is that's holding them back from doing it, they'll never do it. You know what I mean? And so like right now, you mentioned that pushback that you're getting from the reappointment rate. As like, so what will they say to you when you say?
I think it was like they couldn't believe it at first. They're like, there's no way that's possible. And then I actually feel like we are making a bit of headway on that now, but it's like, wow, that can't be possible. And then I asked them, okay, we'll go through the list and call and clean it up. And they're starting to see that, oh, wow, it might actually be the way it says it is on the software, which is.
So you're talking to your front desk about it or your hygienist?
My OM. I haven't got to the hygienist. The hygienist is definitely probably the hardest team member in my office currently to mold. That's okay. I mean, to the point where I had a sterilization tech going basically to keep her happy because she's productive. I mean, she always triples her pay and she's good at selling me. So it was like picking my battles type situation, and I probably haven't quite picked that battle. / I may never. She's like 61 and she's happy, and it's just not something I think I'm working on other parts of the practice as far as like training team members still, but she's a great hygienist.
Okay, so I forgot your name. Was it Tom?
Tom, sure.
All right, Tom. So that, oh my gosh, let's stop right here and we'll pick it up next week, and we're going to talk about your hygienist. Okay. I'm excited about that conversation. All right.
Yep,
we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater. Welcome back to Practice Underwater. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. So Matt, this is you seeing a version of yourself. So what are your thoughts listening to the interview?
First off, what a beast. Like, this guy, clinically wise, is top notch. And I really liked how he said he invested a lot in the supplies he liked. Like, he's really willing to invest the money to enjoy the dentistry he's doing on a day-to-day basis. And it shows. Like, he's excited about doing all this. He's excited about what he's offering. And I think that's important for a new owner. Like, as you get into your own space, you want to have all your stuff that makes you like enjoy dentistry and makes it fun for you.
So I pegged him as a solo. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
He just has the personality of a solo, his just kind of everything about him, his love for dentistry and just kind of that, I don't want to call it introverted, but definitely that like clinical, more of a clinician than he is, maybe the people person in the office.
Yeah, and I think you really got him to realize that too, like really get introspective and think about what he really enjoys in dentistry. And I think doing the dentistry is a lot of what he enjoys.
Yeah, and this guy's, he's a total beast and he's killing it. And I think he recognized, which is very rare, that a new owner has immediate success and recognizes that it's not sustainable. Like, that for me was not the way I was thinking as a new owner, having those first 6 months of like high diagnosis, unsustainable level of production on the doctor side I was thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to keep riding this higher. And it's sort of, around the 6 month mark, you realize that it's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's really important point. I haven't heard that anywhere else, that like honeymoon phase where you reference a lot, where like you're diagnosing so much, everything's going great, that you don't think you need to do things like invest in marketing because you got all the patients you can handle and income's coming in good and you're doing well. It's like, but then you get to that point where it all kind of slows down. You're like, oh shoot, like now what do I do?
Yeah, for me, it was interesting because we had, in our practice, we had grown so much in that honeymoon period that I had taken on fixed expenses like extra staff members to handle that growth. And then I didn't follow it up with building in sustainability. So, we're like finally now back to the point where we're sustainably producing more than we were during the honeymoon period. But yeah, I mean, for sure, it's super important. And it took me, like you can't produce $1.6 million with 10 new patients a month, like it's just not sustainable.
And that's like, if in retrospect, the one thing I think Tom did, maybe not great in his first year of ownership, was not investing in marketing from the near start. I think that's important to hit that hard, especially for him. He had the money coming in every month from the start. Some new owners are a little cash strapped and maybe have to look at more, lower costs, less effective marketing. He had the income to support it. He just didn't do any from the start other than swell. And that kind of is now the effects of that are showing.
Yeah, but I'm really excited for him because, he's going to do the magazine with me. And, I guess I haven't really talked about the magazine yet. So we started doing this thing in my practice, and I had learned about it from Jonas, the co-host of season 3, Jonas Ashbaugh. And he was doing his magazine, and he was talking about the quality of the new patients he was getting, and, for a similar cost to the direct mail. So I gave it a shot, and I really saw the same thing, just a really high quality new patient coming into my practice for reasons not to do with cost. And so, this it's like the perfect marketing medium for this guy, because he can totally capitalize on that high value, high quality new patient. And he doesn't need like 100 low quality new patients. He just needs enough patients. And this guy, he's just a monster. I mean, he's going to get clinically, he has great case acceptance and everything. So, I mean, he's perfect for that.
Yeah, and that's a big shift you made in me, George. My marketing was always focused on an offer. There was something in there, a low new patient special, and most of them, dollars amounts off different kinds of treatment. And the quality of patients I was getting weren't up to snuff. A lot of them would come for their cleanings and then they'd leave, and they wouldn't schedule the treatment they need. So for the listeners, I've been clamoring on George to let me do this magazine. I think he's finally about to let me do it. But, he's a tough nut to crack on this one.
So I was the first one to really try it out. And for us, we have to try things out before we have our coaching clients try them. And in this case, I'm letting Tom do it. But we're at the point now where we're ready to start letting people try out this magazine and really get great results for everybody. So yeah, I mean, definitely. If anybody's interested in the magazine thing, shoot me an email and I'm happy to talk about it.
It's a game changer.
Anything else, Matt, from this interview?
Yeah, I think you mentioned an interesting piece. We were talking to a lot of doctors now who are about to go into an acquisition, and that fear of losing staff members, I think, is high for a lot of people. And you made a brilliant point that in an acquisition, you're most likely going to lose some people, and in the end, it's probably going to be for the better. I know, George, for your acquisition, you didn't lose anyone into it. For mine, I lost all but one of them, and I feel better off for it. Like, it's something you don't go into wanting that to happen, but as you bring your vision and mission to the practice to your staff, if they're not on board, it's better to get people who are on board with you.
For me, the reason why we haven't lost anybody is not because I haven't tried rocking the boat. I think if my staff was here listening, they would start laughing at me if I said, well, I didn't change anything and we kept it all easy, because, I have a hygienist that's, been doing this for almost 30 years. And she's like, you pretty much changed everything about the way I do it. And, it's a testament to her and them that they've been easygoing and open to change, but that's not every staff or every staff member. So, you have to do what's best for the practice, even if that means potentially having an issue or a conflict with a certain employee.
Yeah, and it's as much a testament to your staff as it is a testament to you and how you brought these changes to the staff and how you enrolled them in them and explained the why and got them on board. I probably didn't do just such a great job at that, and I saw the effects of it. So I think there is a way to make changes from the start, in a well thought out progression of them that will get them on board and get them to stay and enroll them in that new vision.
Strengths and weaknesses of mine, I will admit, and this isn't a very humble thing to say, but my ability to lead a team and to have that kind of buy-in on certain ideas, and I also empower them. So, it's not like I'm telling them exactly what to do. I'm sort of orchestrating the why and what are we going to do, and then they're sort of orchestrating the how. And so I think that's when you have staff involvement in changes, it also makes it a lot easier to get buy-in.
Yeah, when you're delegating new responsibilities to this, saying, hey, this is why I want to make this change, this is what it's for. What are you seeing it for yourself? How do you view this? Where do you think we go with this? What could we change together to get to this point that we both agreed on that we want to? All how you present it.
Absolutely. I love this interview for that reason. I think just going over the why and more the leadership stuff, really came out.
Yeah, and one last point on a different issue. We got to get someone who can get that accounting report the next week after that month. Like, that has to be out there. I believe it's there.
Yeah, it's I never imagined to be frustrated with this issue, but I'm sitting here right now in the middle of November, having no idea what my profitability is for October, because it's harder than you think, because the way credit card statements are paid and everything, it's not very straightforward. You need bookkeeping to know what your profit is, and it's annoying. It really is. I can't believe 3 months. He was saying 3 months. That's insane to me. I can't even imagine going 3 months without knowing how much I made 3 months ago.
If you're a CPA out there and you're listening and you can deliver the next week following the month, Matt@sharedpractices.com, you email me.
Yeah, George@sharedpractices.com. I'm in. I mean, seriously, it's got to be 1 week. 1 week. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know anybody else was frustrated with that, but we were both. It just,
it must be the millennial in us. Like, I need it now. I want it now, and I won't accept later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's how I pay myself. You pay yourself based on how much you made. So I need to know that. Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, anything else for me, Matt?
No, this is a great interview. Loved it.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week for part 2 with Tom on the Shared Practices podcast. Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.